All right, folks, welcome to another edition of NRG Unplugged. As always, I'm Max Kahn, joined by the one, the only Casey Loftman. Casey, how's it going tonight?
Good, Max. How about you?
I am fantastic. We've had quite the last couple of weeks here at Nerd Rage Gaming, and hopefully today we're going to get the opportunity to tell you all about it. Now, the big bombshell dropped about 2 weeks ago. We released an article called The Future of Midwest Magic. Casey, let me know what you thought about that.
All right. Well, you know what? First of all, I think we should spike the football here a little bit. You know, not too much, not too much. We don't want to tempt fate, but hey, let's be honest here. When the championship series started last year, I don't know that anybody expected it to turn into what it has turned into. And I don't think that anybody expected it to turn into what it is going to turn into.
I did, but, you know, I digress.
Yeah, but you know what? How confident were you that it was going to happen?
Like 20%.
Right? See, exactly. And I bet, you know, if we get Norm, you know, and get him to be totally truthful, he'd probably say about the same thing because it was a huge risk. It was a huge risk. You know, you're basically saying, hey, let's start a tournament series. Those always work well, right? And it did. It did work. It has worked. It's going to continue to keep working. So, you know, all right. Self-congratulations aside, let me run this down for everybody. Basically, to put it simply, there has been a dearth of competitive Magic events in the Midwest for a couple of different reasons. Star City kind of retrenching in the eastern part of the country, which is, you know, they've made no secret of. You know, you've had some other things where some of these other tournament series or specialty tournaments have sort of fallen by the wayside a little bit. You've had, you know, PPTQs popping up, stuff like that. But let's be honest, nobody likes PPTQs anyway. So there was a void there. And what's filled it? The championship series. What's going to keep filling it? The championship series. And if you want to play high quality competitive Magic in the Midwest, you've got an opportunity to do that every single month. And it's not just standard, it's not just modern, it's not just legacy, it's all of them. Sometimes it's all of them in the same day because we're going to have a team constructed one of these things next year, and that is going to just be just absolute pandemonium. I can already see that coming. But yeah, you know, it's just unbelievable to see how this thing has taken off, to see how well the players have responded to it, to see some other people try to imitate it and fail to do so. And I think that speaks very highly of what Norm has done at Nerd Rage, what you have done and the roles that you've played in bringing this thing to life. You know, what Norm's son Noah has done, you know, in his role bringing this thing to life. And, you know, all the players who've supported this as well. Yeah, it's one of those things where sort of everybody took a leap of faith. Everybody said, yeah, let's try this. Let's try this tournament series. Let's try playing in this tournament series. Let's see what happens here. And it paid off.
You know, when we had been talking about releasing an article like this for a while. We knew that we were going to release the dates for the 2018 championship series on that day. But Star City's article the day before, where they announced the rest of their schedule and had no Midwest events, kind of gave us that confidence in order to release it. We're like, hey, Star City announced yesterday that there's this void, and today we're going to announce we're going to fill it. So that really, I don't know, kind of lit the fire behind us so that when we released this article, it took a lot of people by surprise, and hopefully it brought a lot of people joy knowing that if they were a Midwest Magic player, somebody hasn't forgotten about them. And I feel like that's what a lot of people were feeling after Monday. And then on Tuesday, we helped to remedy that.
Right. And I mean, you know, there's two aspects to that. Number one is the fact that the traffic on the article just exploded right away. I mean, it is our second or third most popular article all time. And it reached that status in like 3 days, you know. So first of all, there was that, but second of all, there was just, you know, the feedback just from people that we know, you know, and people who know people that we know, if that makes sense. You know, seeing people sharing the posts, seeing people make comments about it on Facebook and Twitter and everything like that, and the reaction of people saying, whoa, hey, this is fantastic. Because let's be honest here. This is Chicago we're talking about. Milwaukee's right up the road. Madison's right up the road. Indianapolis is a few hours away. Louisville's a few hours away. We're not talking about, forgive me, North Dakota. We're not talking about being in the middle of North Dakota here. We're talking about a huge area with a huge base of Magic players. And that's just going to get ignored? No, it's not, because we're not going to ignore it. Maybe other people will, but we won't. So that's kind of my takeaway.
Yeah, I think that this article really helped us solidify our goals and where we were going, and hopefully it brought other people confidence knowing to expect this year and next year and in 2019 that the future of Midwest Magic is very bright, and we're going to do everything we can to support it. And one of the ways that we're planning on supporting that is through fantastic events next year. We're planning on increasing the championship for next year, hosting more CTs, more CTQs, and just expanding the range of the event. So it's not just Chicago-based, Madison-based, Indianapolis-based, St. Louis-based. All these places need to come together, because in order to create this tournament series, we need the participation of everybody. If it's just a Chicago series, it's not going to work. We need all of these people from different regions participating to make it what we envision it to be.
Right, but we're already seeing that. I mean, there are a carload of guys that, from Iowa that we know we're going to see every time there's a CT. We're going to see them again this weekend, So the word is sort of already out there, but I think one of the big things from that article that probably, it really hit home with me, and probably with a lot of other people as well, is that, Norm kind of laid out that, hey, we've got a plan here. We've got a 3-year plan for how we want to build this thing, for how we want it to be successful. And it's not just a fly-by-night thing. It's not just a, hey, let's throw together a tournament series and have some people come on down to the shop to play. It's really built from the ground up to be a lasting thing. It's really built to be something that, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, you can say, oh, hey, there's a championship trial next weekend. Better mark my calendar now. Or, oh, yeah, okay, so next month, we know we're getting in the car. We're driving from Madison to Buffalo Grove or whatever.
We're going to talk a little bit more about the contents of the future of Midwest Magic at the end of this episode. But right now, we're going to move on to our last 3 events. The last 3 weekends in a row have all been CTQ weekends, which is really cool. We had 3 different stores from all around Illinois, literally all around Illinois, participating in these events. So we're going to review them a little bit, talk about them, and let's get into the first one. So the first one was hosted by Evanston Games and Cafe in Evanston, Illinois. It was a modern event, and it was our biggest CTQ of these 3 weekends.
Yeah, and the winner was Nicholas Bradley, who can be seen there in the picture toward the front in the gray sweatshirt and the plaid pants on Merfolk. And hey, Merfolk winning a CTQ, all right? How great is that? And the thing is that this was the first individual event CTQ. So I was really curious to see how it was going to go, because we had the team CTQ, and that was team constructed. Everybody who's played that format loves it. Everybody who hasn't played it wants to try it. So we had a great crowd there, but that was almost guaranteed. So I was curious to see how an individual CTQ would turn out, and it turned out to be a big success. Evanston, they had a lot of people there, and Nicholas ended up winning this thing with Merfolk. In second place, we had an Abzan list. I mean, we'll get into this a little bit more as we move through the CTQs, but there's an awful lot of diversity in the top 8 lists here, which is something that's really awesome to see. But speaking of this CTQ specifically, we've got Nicholas Bradley in first place. We're going to have a Q&A with him that will be going online this week. And, looking at his Merfolk list, it's Merfolk and a bunch of Lords, and, just turn them sideways. And it's great. It's fantastic to see, first of all, an aggro deck like that do well. And second of all, Nicholas, he's a young guy. I mean, I'm pretty sure that he's, in high school, and I don't think he's that far along in high school, to be honest. But, obviously a pretty good player with a pretty good deck.
Yeah, and I think two of the most notable people on the championship series right now, one of them is Alexander Hamilton, finished in the top 8 of this event. Now he's jumped way up on the leaderboard thanks to the event. And another player, Austin Hoth from Iowa, started out the season kind of under the gun. I think he didn't have a great finish in his first or his second CTs, but he's been sticking with the series all year, drove from Iowa to Chicago for this event, top 8'd, and now he's, I believe, on the top 16 of the leaderboard after all 3 of the weekends. I don't know specifically at the end of the first weekend, but it really goes to show you that these people that are showing up every week, just their consistent, good top 8, top 16 finishes are going to get them there. You don't need to win every event.
Right. I mean, you pick up 2 or 3 points here, you pick up 3 or 4 points there, you pick up 8 points from a CT, and, you're right there in contention at the end.
Absolutely. So that event was a great event. Thanks so much for Evanston Games and Cafe for hosting that one. We're in talks with them for some more, so stay tuned for announcements about that one. Our next CTQ is the following weekend in Moline, Illinois, all the way on the Illinois and Iowa border. Some players from the Iowa region that really like the series come talk to their store owner. The store owner agreed, and we got to host a CTQ in Moline, and that was a great event too.
Hey, look, it's Alex Hamilton in the top 8 again. But what's interesting about this one, though, if you look at that picture, I know a lot of people, they'll recognize Alex Hamilton, they'll recognize Alex Javed, but one other person there who's a regular on the CT series actually won this event, and that's Tommy Tomsevich with Sultai Death Shadow. Now, what's interesting about these CTQs is Tommy is a regular at the CTs. You always see him there. He was in the championship last year, everything like that. But Nicholas Bradley, who won the one in Evanston, and Caleb Spicer, who won the one that we'll be talking about here in a minute down in Bloomington. Yeah, spoiler alert. Congratulations, Caleb. These guys aren't regulars on the series. So you're seeing kind of this mix of, well, now all of a sudden Nicholas Bradley, he just picked himself up 6 points. So did Caleb. So all of a sudden, and now it makes sense for them to try to hit some of these events. Meanwhile, Tommy, who hasn't automatically qualified yet this year, and who's in the running for an at-large spot, hey, that's another 6 points in his pocket. He's going to be there this weekend for the CT. I'm sure he'll be at the next CTQ that's anywhere within reasonable driving distance. Alexander Hamilton, kind of the same thing, grinding those at-large points. But then you have Alex Javed, who is already qualified, but is in the running for the MVP award. So what does he do? He goes out to Moline to play some Modern because he's really good at Modern. And picking up those points, can help him get free entries all next year. As I mentioned, Tommy Tomsevich winning with Sultai Death Shadow. It's a deck that he's been working on a lot, tuning a lot over the last few months. He's had a lot of success with. Alexander Hamilton, Bant Nightfall, Alex Javed on Affinity. We had a 4-color Saheeli Rai copycat list. I mean, We have Burn, we have Delver, we have Mono Blue Tron, making an appearance. And remember that, by the way, everybody. Spoiler alert. But, again, a really diverse top 8, modern format. I think people are really enjoying the format, really enjoying the fact that they can, kind of play their pet decks, play a little bit of whatever they want these days.
Right. And another notable thing for this event is of the top 8 players, 4 of them are notable leaderboard players. Alex Javed, thanks to his finish at the event, jumped Peter Tragos, and after this event, he was first place on the leaderboard, the first time he's ever been up there. Tommy Tomsevich jumped all the way to 4th place. Alexander Hamilton jumped all the way to 3rd place. And then Ben Grader, I think he's in the top 10 right around now. He also jumped there, and he's a local to Iowa. So it's really cool seeing that the Iowa person came to win the Iowa CTQ, or top 8 the Iowa CTQ.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so our third and final CTQ was the one at Collectible Corner down south in Normal, Illinois. And this one was quite the top 8 as well. Casey, tell us about it.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, to kind of ruin it, Caleb Spicer ended up winning. What's interesting about this top 8 is that we have 3 different variations of Tron decks, which I don't think anybody would have predicted that. But, we'll take a step back there for a minute. Again, we have some people, Jung-Ji Choi, who's a regular at the CTs, people like that who are making the drives to be in these tournaments, and that's a great sign. we mentioned that Alex Jabed had temporarily jumped Peter Tragos. Well, then Peter managed to 0-2 drop this event his way back into a tie for first place in the MVP race, which frankly is just phenomenal. I mean, only Peter could do that, really. But the top 8 here again, loaded with good players, and like I said, 3 different variations of Tron decks. Where'd that come from? Caleb Spicer was on Eldrazi Tron. Ended up winning the tournament. In the finals, he beat Brandon Lunt, who was on Black Green Tron. We also had a Red Green Tron list. There was a Scred Red list. There was Grixis Death Shadow. There was Burn. There was Grixis Control. There was Abzan Company. I mean, think about how many different deck lists I've rattled off here talking about these 3 events, and I haven't even touched on all the ones that were in the top 8. And again, that's a really great sign in terms of format diversity. It's a really great sign in terms of player diversity, that we aren't just getting players who are like, well, I'm just going to go jam Death Shadow all day long and know that I can win the mirror. It's people just saying, hey, you know what? Maybe I don't necessarily want to try to make a run at the leaderboard. Maybe I don't have any interest in ever going to a CT, but here's a chance for me to play Modern. So I'm going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and of course, Brandon Lunt from this event, I believe he jumped into the top 10 of the leaderboard. Jungji Choi made up a lot of ground, and Caleb Spicer, thanks to his 6 points, I think he had one previously. I think he's up to 7 now, but he is definitely putting in work in the championship series. So we're excited to see all 3 of the winners eventually use their free entries into CTs, and the rest of the people show up this weekend in Buffalo Grove for the May Championship Trial Legacy. Casey, tell us a little bit about what you expect to see at this event.
Frankly, the Wild Wild West. I'm really excited about this event because it'll be the first Legacy event that I've had a chance to play since Sensei's Divining Top was banned. But from looking at the deck lists from the Star City Games Team Constructed event this last weekend, as well as the Legacy Classic, I mean, there's just variety all over the place here. I mean, people are just sort of throwing whatever against the wall and seeing if it sticks. I mean, this week's deck of the week was a mono red sneak attack list that ended up in top 4 of the Team Constructed. And one thing I loved about it was in the top 8 profile, the guy mentioned that, so in rounds 5 and 6, I played a total of 5 turns, not games, turns, and won both matches. It's like, okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But again, it just seems like a really wide open format right now. It wasn't just, okay, here's a bunch of Miracles decks, and that's great to see because I know that some people are still trying to make Miracles work. Trying, I don't know, whatever. I mean, Scroll Rack or the enchantment that I can never think of the name of, the blue one that gives you kind of that top effect, or hey, let's try Sylvan Library. It's like, really? This is what we're doing now, I guess. But hey, you've seen some lists popping up that they're running Brainstorm and Jace the Mind Sculptor, and they're doing okay. They aren't as dominant as the top lists were, but there's some potential there.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to see what Legacy looks like without Sensei's Divining Top, but I'm also really excited to see how the leaderboard looks after this event. We've seen so much movement over the last 3 weeks. The leaderboard before the 3 CTQs and after the 3 CTQs is completely different. What do you expect to be the biggest changes you see in the leaderboard after the May CT?
Well, the first thing that I'm interested to see is where Peter Tragos ends up after this event. Because Peter has won the last 2 Legacy CTs, this year and last year. Both times he did it with his Eldrazi deck. And one of the things about that Eldrazi deck was it had a great Miracles matchup. Well, now, without Miracles in the field, is it still something he's going to play? Is he going to try something different? And Peter's a fantastic player who can kind of pick up any deck and play with it and do well. But Legacy rewards format knowledge and deck knowledge so much that you've got to think that he would be at a little bit of a disadvantage if he's playing a new deck, because compared to the one that he's been playing for the last year, basically. Another player that it'll be interesting to see how they do, Alex Hamilton. He was a Miracles player. he loved miracles. He was very good with it, and all of a sudden, sorry, buddy, you got to find a new deck. And so he probably picks up Stoneblade or something like that, and maybe does pretty well with it. But again, he's having to switch to a different deck after putting all that time and all that effort into another deck that he had good luck with. You know, then you have Alex Javed, who plays lands in Legacy. Well, he's not going to have to change his deck, but he has to decide whether it's still a good meta call. I don't know how likely it is for him to just be able to switch to a new Legacy deck on a whim, because how likely is it for anybody to do that? But maybe he decides, hey, I'm just going to take this deck that I know inside and out and go play it, and maybe that pays off for him. While Alex and Peter struggle a little bit because they have to pick up something new.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fascinating CT. Not only those top 3 players, but the rest of the 20 players on our leaderboard. Any one of them winning the event, or just even top 8 in the event, is going to show a huge shakeup in the leaderboard. So whatever happens this weekend, it'll certainly be a defining moment right around the halfway point of the championship series this year. So it'll be a really interesting opportunity to see how the leaderboard shakes up halfway through.
Well, right, because let's look at this for a second. So the top 17 players in the at-large points right now have 10 or more points. Okay, if you win a CT, obviously you get your automatic qualification. But if you finish second in a CT, how many points do you get?
8.
8. Okay, so if you've showed up at 2 other CTs this year, or CTQs or whatever, and even if you've O2 dropped them, you got a point for being there. So if you make a run to the finals in this thing, hey, there's 8 more points. All of a sudden, there you are. You're tied for a spot, in that playoff at the end of the year or something like that. So there's still things are starting to solidify a little bit. I think you can safely say at this point that some of the people at the top are very likely to worst case scenario be in the playoff for the final at-large spot. But there's still so much churn at the bottom. Still so many chances for people to jump up and, grab a spot or, spike a tournament. And all of a sudden, that opens up another at-large spot because somebody who was in that, 8 to 12 range ends up winning one of these things. So still a long ways to go. Still a lot of movement to happen. But, it's starting to shape up a little bit where you can sort of see where some of those break points are. And where some of those, real fights are going to be. The one at the top is fun. Peter and Alex fighting it out for MVP. But ultimately, it doesn't matter for this year's championship because they're both locked in. So that one's just kind of, it's a bragging rights thing. It's a fun thing to watch and see, is Peter going to be able to hold off Alex? Is Alex going to be able to overtake Peter? That sort of thing. But it's those battles as you start getting down into the people who are trying to qualify on points that's where the real action is going to be.
Absolutely. If you want to see the real action this weekend happen live, you can tune into Twitch at twitch.tv/NerdRageGamingLive. We'll have live commentary of all of the Swiss and the top 8 rounds. If you're in the area or traveling from out of town and you want to play in this event, be sure to pre-register for the event at nerdragegaming.com. Seats are almost sold out, so make sure that you register as soon as possible because we have a limited number of seats for that event. And we have had 90-plus players at most of our events this year. So please make sure to pre-register if you're planning on coming. And if not, be sure to tune in live on Saturday. All right, well, the last thing we're going to do today is talk about the rest of 2017. If you read the Future of Midwest Magic article, one of the parts that we talked about was the rest of the 2017 series. And we have announced dates and formats for most of the events throughout the rest of the year. So Casey, do you want to give us a rundown of what's going on?
Sure. Well, obviously this weekend we have the Legacy CT. There is no CT in June, simply because of all of the other things going on in Magic and people on vacations and things like that. It was just one of those, where the heck are we going to schedule a CT in here?
I'll see y'all in Vegas.
Exactly. So, but we pick back up in July. July 29th is a modern CT. August 12th is a standard CT, which will be the only remaining standard CT for the remainder of the year, because we listen to the players and we know that they don't want to play standard right now. So September 9th is a legacy CT, October 7th is a modern CT, and then November 25th is a CT with a format that's to be determined, so I suppose that could still be a standard CT, but let's be honest here, it's probably going to be legacy or modern.
To be honest, though, the reason that we did that was twofold. The first one is we know that standard is in a place right now that's kind of weird, but after the banning of Felidar Guardian, people were up on standard, but now Aetherworks Marvel is the villain, right? So we're going to see how standard shakes out, we're going to see how rotation happens, how Ixalan treats standard, and then we'll make a decision about the format for that one.
Right. If nothing else, Ulamog will be long gone by that point. So there you go. But then we get into the real fun stuff. December 2nd is the last chance qualifier. And I know we've talked about this before, but just to give everybody a refresher on this, Max, how does that last chance qualifier work?
So if you guys remember last year, we had 16 spots in the championship, 10 for the monthly winners, and 6 for the at-large points. And what we figured out is at the last CT, if you weren't within striking range of those points, then there was no reason for you to show up because you would have to win the event to qualify. Now the change that we're making for this year, along with the 10 monthly winners and the previous champion, is we had 5 at-large spots to do. So we're giving the 4 top at-large people not already qualified spots into the championship, but then the 5th spot is going to go to a playoff tournament, double elimination, modern format, between the 5th to 12th place at-large players not already qualified, so that more people at that last CT can get their shot at an invitation to the championship, because we think it's really important that as many people are playing in that last event so that they can qualify for the $5,000 championship. So playing in a 5th through 12th playoff tournament is just going to give more people the opportunity to qualify.
Right. And like Max said, we're talking about an 8-man double elim, so that helps guard against somebody showing up for a single elimination tournament and then having to mulligan to 3 in game 3 of round 1 or something like that. But this might quite possibly be the most entertaining moment from any CT this year, is just seeing how this thing turns out, because you've got 8 players fighting for 1 spot, and it really is the last chance for everybody. So you're going to have people coming in there who are so close to getting in on points, and then people who are a long shot to getting in on points, and they've all got an equal shot at getting in. And you might end up with a very disappointed number 5, or a very disappointed player who was in 5th place coming into the tournament, or maybe they hold off and end up winning it. So either way, it's going to be amusing.
It's important to remember that 5th place player is going to have the option to play throughout the entire double elimination tournament. Right. Because we wanted to make sure to give them that advantage, because they did earn more points, presumably, than the 12th place player. So the 5th place player will have the opportunity to play. So it'll be really interesting to see if you're the 12th place player going in, you know that you're going to be on the draw every single match. Mm-hmm. Is that going to change your deck decision? If you know you're playing the 5th place player in the first round and they're, let's say, Alex Jobin Affinity, even though he wouldn't be in the tournament, are you going to main deck Shatterstorms? Like, that's something that you could feasibly do. At that point, 15 of the championship slots are going to be locked, and it's up to those 8 players to determine that 16th spot. So it'll be really interesting to see the mini metagaming that happens at that event.
Right, and I mean, you think about it, you've basically got to win, 4 matches here to earn a spot in, because you've got to win the same way you would an 8-man, and then you're going to have to win 1 more to get past that double elimination aspect of it. I think I did the math on that right, but even if I didn't, whatever, we'll roll with it.
Whoever's the first player to win 4 matches without losing 2.
Right. Yeah. There you go. Thank you. So okay. So you've got to win basically 4 out of 5 matches. So how does that influence your deck selection? Do you bring something that is a bit of a glass cannon, but you feel like you can count on it, to work 4 times in a row or something like that? Or do you bring something that's a little bit more stable, a little bit more solid against the entire field and go from there? Or like Max said, do you main deck Shatterstorm if you know you're going to be playing against Affinity in round 1? And then how does that affect you in rounds 2 and 3, and so on and so on? So, yeah, so that is going to be just fascinating, both from a gameplay and a psychological standpoint. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then December 16th is the 2017 championship. As everybody remembers from last year, it's a 3-format championship. Standard, Modern, Legacy, and then the top 8. The player who is the higher seed has the choice of play, draw, or format. So if someone's the number 1 seed and they have a really great Legacy matchup in top 8, then they can choose Legacy, but then they give their opponent the option of playing or drawing. So it was a big hit last year. Everybody loved seeing how all the decision making played into it and everything like that. So yeah, we'll be seeing that again this year, definitely.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I'm really looking forward to the championship. Remember, $5,000 in the prize pool this year, and it's totally not late. If you're just hearing about the championship series for the first time after our article, it is completely reasonable to get a spot in the championship this year. You just got to win one of our 6 CTs or place in the top 12 at large of the people not already qualified and then win that last chance qualifier, or place in the top 4 at large not already qualified to guarantee yourself a spot in the championship. So we've got 6 months left before the final CT pretty much. So it'll be really interesting to see how the leaderboard shakes out in the months to come.
Yeah, 6 CTs is a chance to earn an awful lot of at-large points.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have for NRG Unplugged this week. First, we talked about the future of Midwest Magic. We reviewed all 3 of the CTQs that happened over the last couple weekends. Then we talked a little bit about the May CT that'll be this Saturday. And then we talked about the rest of the 2017 series schedule. Casey, is there anything else you'd like to say to our viewers before we sign off for the night?
The only other thing, just to sort of piggyback on what Norm said in the article, is just, thank you to everybody. Thank you to all the players who come out to the CTs who help make this thing a success. Thank you to everybody who's willing to travel for these things. Thanks to you and Noah and Norm for all of your efforts in putting these things together in the first place. It's really exciting to be a part of. Even sort of peripherally as I am, but it's a lot of fun seeing this thing grow, seeing this thing take off, hearing people talk about it and how much they enjoy it, and how much they love being having this opportunity. So thank you to all the players, thank you to all the organizers, thank you to everybody who has helped get this thing off the ground and make it a reality.
Absolutely. So you heard it from Casey. Thank you guys so much for everything you do to support the Nerd Rage Gaming Championship Series. Be sure to come to our event this Saturday, and if you're not able to, tune in on twitch.tv/NerdRageGamingLive. But until next time, this is Max Kahn signing off for Casey Laufman from NRG Unplugged.